it's a question of trying to balance freedom and your responsibilities as journalists. And so this is actually why this issue is so difficult, is you're trying to get that balance right. I happen to think the decision was wrong, that it errs on the side of freedom and not enough on the side of responsibility.
There was a judgment call here. I think the judgment call that was made was a poor one. I think the discussion that has followed the judgment call has been simplistic and one-dimensional.
You have to justify whether this was right for the community, whether this is right for defense of free speech, whether this is right for this paper. I understand the advertisement is foul. I understand it's reprehensible. I understand it comes from an underlying anti-Semitism. But at the same time, I believe that the campus community should be able to know that when it sees it.
If the standard of offense, I won't use it if it's offensive, meaning the line is incitement to violence, that's a long way. That's a huge way. You might want to pull that in a little bit.
You wouldn't publish threats or blackmail, right? You wouldn't, and I presume you wouldn't publish an ad recruiting people to sell cocaine on campus. That is, you would not, I presume, allow your advertising space to be used not for incitement, but for recruitment for criminal activity, or for instruction in how to perform criminal activity. Not coincidentally, any of these things could indeed expose you to legal liability. Well, there's a reason for that. Bradley Smith's little link to his website wasn't advocacy, it was recruitment. And that was a judgment that should have been obvious.
Where do you draw the line of not inciting violence and inciting violence?
I understand people say, no, you need to draw the line back. I fear going down that route and starting to actually stop people from saying what they have every right to say and should be allowed to say, because of the fact that I'm fearful of what any single comment could do to incite violence.
Wait a second.
You understand that you're not stopping people from speaking, you're declining to offer them a paid platform. You understand you're not the government, right? You can't put people in jail for speaking. You don't have the power to silence speech. That's not a question you have to wrestle with. The only question you have to, collectively, you have to wrestle with is whether to use your newspaper to provide them a platform.
The right principle here is do not offend. You can't help but offend just about everything you write in journalism.
You're not talking about a legal question here. You have a First Amendment right to do whatever you want with a real estate or a website. I'm sorry, within legal standards, you can do so many things. But say with me, journalism to students. Law tells you what you can do, but ethics tell you what you should do. And the essential step that was left out here was thinking about the harm that would be caused, how you can responsibly minimize that harm, but still live up to your journalistic responsibilities. And that's the piece that's missing.
If the university and the state of Wisconsin are going to entrust resources and authority to students, you all have to demonstrate that you're adults, that you're grown up enough to handle it. And running something like a campus newspaper, particularly an electronic newspaper, on an ad hoc basis, without policies in place, without knowing what the legal standards are, without having researched what the policy issues are, irrespective of the particular outcome in a given case, caused me to have profound doubts about the wisdom of our continuing to give students the level of say that they have on this campus.
I don't have much confidence in the marketplace of ideas. It was, at the end of the 19th century, it was shot to hell as a theory. When we saw that, in fact, there was no marketplace of ideas. In fact, the media concentrated control as a mediating agent of society, and in many ways, it was a nice justification for the control of information. This is a public sphere where enormous forces of manipulating opinion exist. It's not a rosy marketplace of ideas where truth will ultimately win out. Often truth wins out way too late. You find out there were no mass weapons of destruction in Iraq. It's too late. People were killed. I say the way is not to be sort of passively feel like we have to link to somebody's controversial website. Why don't we do it in the editorial pages of our papers and the editorial pages of our broadcasters and on our online? Let's have a real discussion where reasoned voices, where facts play a role, where principles play a role, right? And that means to hell with extreme voices if we can prove, and we are quite confident they are extreme.
And I don't want you to dismiss the power of going on and commenting. You know, 10 years ago, when I was offended by something the Badger Herald ran, I didn't have that avenue open to me. It's a powerful avenue. It invites that audience into the conversation in a real way. Anonymity is a really important part of our marketplace of ideas. We need to really put a check on our desire to shut down these kinds of conversations, as offensive as they may be.
If outsiders want to listen, eavesdrop on our conversations, that's fine. That's their business. But they have no right to enter the conversation, let alone take it over.
I would just also put on that point, though, requiring a university login also classes out people in the actual Madison area.
It's a campus newspaper, not a Madison newspaper.
We still cover Madison issues. It relates.
But you cover it from the perspective of the campus people. We can talk about Ethiopia or France or Madison, but it's our conversation.
And so when we impact people in the Madison area, we can't allow them to come to that conversation.
They have certainly no right to enter that conversation any more than I do theirs.
They write a story about the nitty-gritty, and the owner of the nitty-gritty can't comment.
Yeah,
You can let him comment, you can invite him to comment, but he has no right to comment.
This is not the first time that I've felt attacked or offended by the Badger Herald. This is a long stream of events that I feel have been underlying in your publication. Starting with that, enough people who had those horrible anti-Semitic things to say read the Badger Herald enough to be aware that this is a place that they could make those kinds of comments. Those comments traveled to a Holocaust denier in Mexico so that he could come and find this as a place where he can get his message out. As a Jewish student, I am offended that your paper has now become a hub for anti-Semitism, and I know that I am not the only one that thinks that way here. Having said that, why will you not take the ad down?
If I did this, I'd expect to be impeached. But that's, I think, a different argument.
Are you saying I should resign then?
No. I'm saying that I, as a representative of students,
I'm not valuing his opinion by putting it up there. I understand that's the argument, and I understand. But at the same time, I don't buy the argument that if you ignore it, it goes away.